Hold on one second here, guys. Let's see if I can get started really quick. Looks like, well, I can't see what it looks like here, but I think everything is rolling properly. So let's get started. Hold on one second. Hide. And everyone. There we go. And let's see if, yes, that is not what everyone wants to see, which is how I look. Let's get the screen back on there. There we go. I think, what are my options? There we go. Sure. Okay, sorry, didn't know if that was scary or not. But there you go. I'm doing a trade review today, and I'm doing it for a very specific purpose, right? So before I get started, I have had a difficulty executing really well for about a week and a half, right? I just haven't been on my game. I've been on my game on entering my trades, exiting my trades. I have sucked. Okay, and there's been a couple of factors in that. So number one, if you're listening to this and you're not a struggling trader, or you haven't had periods where you struggled, or you just always make money and you don't want to hear anything about what's my entry, exit, stop, you're probably a unicorn and you can leave now. I'm talking about when I'm struggling as a trader, and I'm struggling right now, right? So I'm definitely not a unicorn, real trader. The struggle is real. Things can get in your head and it can get hard. So first I went through my frustrated, but I went through my journal and I wrote down the things that were bothering me. So number one, my house got flooded about 3 weeks ago now, or 2 weeks ago. I've had my family in 2 different houses, up the babies, up the teenagers, and moving around and changing your schedule. And that can be really frustrating. So the number one thing you want to ask is, even if you don't realize that there's a burden on your shoulders, there could be a burden on your shoulders. Is it affecting your decision making, right? That can be a very, very, very real issue, right? Number two, even if you're having issues with getting in the trade, you can also have issues getting out of the trade, right? And there can be all kinds of reasons for that. You can want to be a superstar. In my case, I have a bunch of people watching me while I'm trading live in real time. It adds a pressure fixture to it, right? And I'll give you an example. If you're trading in real time and you took a trade, let's say you nailed the low today at 28.80 and you exited at 28.82, and you're happy with $100 on ES, right? And you went out at the end of the day and you tell all your friends, I made $100 on ES, and they don't know jack about the market, you did great. No one cares that it went to 28.92. That's something you know, and you don't have to present to everybody. But when you're doing it in front of a bunch of people and you go, hey, I'm going long at 28.82, you exit at 28.84, and you watch it go to 28.93, if that's the case, now instead of feeling good about your 2 points, you might end up feeling bad. I get that all the time. It's just a part of the deal of running a room. You always want to feel like you've maximized the trade and you've gotten the swing all the way through. What specifically has happened to me is outside the pressure, outside of having my house having been flooded and moving my family and dealing with contractors and getting the house fixed, has been this issue of taking trades, getting up huge on them. NQ is an example. I was up over 16 points on 2 different trades today, twice, and I took losses on both of them. That's horrible trade management. I took no scales. I was trying to hit the home run, right? And I've gotten into this mode of, again, trying to hit the home run, and it just hasn't been healthy for me. So the question is, when you're struggling, right, how do you go and fix it? The first thing you have to do is a couple things. Where are you struggling? So the easiest way to identify that is, where am I not struggling? Where I'm not struggling is in key areas to get in. My process for entering a trade is working pretty close to perfectly. It has about a 70% win rate, 30% loss rate, and the risk is very manageable. Where I'm hurting is I'm trying to figure out where the whole market's going, and then I'm trying to push that trade all the way through from bottom to top. And it just ends up being a very, very difficult, let me get rid of this, very difficult situation. So before I jump in, I'm going to go through my day, how I laid it out from the beginning. We're going to look at it on a 5-minute time frame, and then we're going to look at it on from an order flow basis. And I'm going to identify 2 things. A, what my trades look like, how I should have managed them, how I really managed them, and how I can improve from there, right? And what steps I can take to improve from there. So here we go. Number one, before we get started, I got to flash this up there real quick. Past performance is not indicative of future results. This is all BS, but you got to say it. Trading derivatives involves substantial risk. You can lose an enormous amount of money. Know what you're doing. This is for educational purposes. I'm basically sharing my struggles, my accomplishments, and my trade plan with you in hopes that it'll make you a better trader. It's not easy, guys. You got to work really hard at it. So give me just 1 second. My wife's calling me. I've got to actually answer this for a sec, and I will be right back. I apologize. 2 seconds. Sorry about that, guys. So continuing, forgive me. You got to handle the wife, right? Make sure she's taken care of. So number one, to start today, what do? We go in and we look at, is this the chart I've been using? That looks very familiar. Okay, there you go. So this morning, coming into the day, we identified some key areas. If you're a member in the room, this sounds familiar. If you're not in the room, I didn't record this morning, so I apologize. But this is pretty much a daily deal, right? So I'm going to lay it out just so you know what I expected. So when you're having a struggle, what you want to do when you're struggling as a trader is you want to go back to the beginning of your day. How are you laying out the day? And what did you expect to happen versus what did you get? And then really importantly, this is where people have a hard time. What did you expect? What did you actually do versus what you expected? So today, a couple things. I expected balance, number one. Number two, I did not expect a break to the upside. I did not expect a break to the downside. And the first thing I said this morning was that the market would probably be end capped by these two locations down here. I do the same thing every day. I had this right here, and I had this right here. So that's what I actually said in the room during the market preview, guys. And that's exactly what we got. So it's even more disappointing, right? So this can be a frustration in your progress as a trader. You knew what to look for. You even said what would most likely be the outcome, right? Day after trend day, we usually go balance, right? And then you flip around and you go, okay, this is what I think will happen. You look at the end of the day and you go, I should be up huge, right? And then you look at the actual results on paper, which in my case, I'm down a little bit today, and you go, yeah, something really went wrong. So the first thing is, the good news is I don't have to correct that read. I know that day after trend day, we usually have balance. The next thing that I wrote down, and I wrote this, and I'll give you a little bit of look from the team Slack channel. Let me pull this over. And it was all the way up here. Let me see where my comments were this morning or last night. And I said, okay, 28.95 and 29.02 still need to be tested above. I got taken care of, right? So this was my notes from last night when I posted the levels to the members, right? I said volume point of control, TPO point of control below at 28.89 to 28.90. There's really no point in taking and looking short. Well, I can't spell. Looking short until we're under 28.89, and there's a lot to repair below. However, market does not have to fix all of it or part of it. We can simply gap away and not come back. Not saying that will happen. What I'm saying is, in order for that to happen, we'll have to be trading, in order to go lower, we'll have to trade below 28.89, and then we see if we can get some setups. My guess is, and it's only a guess, they squeeze the shorts right into the Apple announcement. After that, we see what sets up. I would save some energy for after 12 p.m. tomorrow, right? And then early in Asia, ES right back into volume point of control and is not closed cleanly below on a 6-range bar, right? So then we come in this morning and okay, so then we come in this morning and we're looking at where we were opening. We're already well below the volume point of control. And so we would have had another zone, or at least this marked off as here to here. This is going to come up on the chart in just a minute. You'll see it, right? And again, I literally take it step by step. I pointed out this anomaly right here. And what I said in the market preview was that anomaly, because it's the middle anomaly, usually gets traded through. It's usually good for a quick rotation, and then it gets traded through on both sides, right? And then last I said value area low. What was important about value area low? You had to get below value area low in order to push lower, right? So all those things kind of came into fruition today. And then I said, finally, if we could get down to the 77 to 76, chart repaired. And once we repair the chart, if we can get down here, we should go back up. But most likely we just stay inside this area. And within this area, because it's prior day's value, we expect balance, chop, and rotation. You only get clear moves above when you get above or below value area low, right? Okay, great. We had that piece done perfectly, and it obviously lined up. We rejected out of the 95, 96. We failed to hold above value area high. Once we came back in, we went all the way back down to the bottom of the range. Then we came all the way back up. That's the first step, right? So then you go and look at that on a 5-minute chart, right? Which we're going to do next. Oops. So I minimize that, and I look at the 5-minute chart. How did it perform just on a 5-minute chart? I'm going to widen this out so it fills up the whole day. There we go. That's the whole day. So if you look, we opened up from the get-go, right? We were stuck under. We attempted to get above the TPO and the volume point of control, failed, got underneath, backside tested. So if you only traded, right? So remember the zones, guys, they've been modified in the rooms. The zones used to be 2 points wide. So normally the zone would have probably been something like 88.50 to 90.50 with a 2-point stop behind, which means the stop would have been 92.50. So with the market opening underneath, right? Underneath, you would have normally been short into the 80 if you traded the first half hour, right? You would have normally been short that 88.50, right? And you would have gotten your 2 points, moved stop to break even, and you probably would have gotten stopped on the snap back. It's the first 30 minutes of the market, right? If we then proceed to look, we get over here, and here's 9 a.m. What's the picture on 9 a.m.? First of all, it's balanced. From the 5-minute look, the market's not moving up or down, but we're stuck underneath value area high. We're stuck underneath the TPO and volume point of control. What does the market then do? It can't get above. We come up, we backside test, failure to get back above 89.75. We then roll down. This is important because I trade much smaller range bars on ES. It's important to understand that had you just been looking at this on a 5-minute bar and looking at the zones as they're posted to members, right? How you would have treated it, and there's some members that only trade the zones. How would have you treated it if you were just trading the zones? That's the question to be asked, right? And so if you'd just been trading the zones, first of all, you got your 2 points here. If you look on the rebound here from the first time we touched in, it came into 83.75, and it rolled up to a high of, let's assume that was it right there. It didn't quite, I'm not sure if it gave you 2 points or not. It gave you 1.5 points. Again, pre-market, that was noted as a weak zone, right? And then we came to value area low. And into value area low, we failed to break, consolidated above value area low. So this is really important. You got to stop and think for a minute. Hey, we can't get below value area low. They really pressed hard. You'll notice delta got to the session low, cumulative delta, and this was the biggest negative delta on a 5-minute bar, and we couldn't break, right? I would say, had I been looking at a 5-minute bar, I would have said the first close, right? So we've tightened it up a lot. But the first close above here, the backside test of this area should generate a push to the upside, right? So this is old school how I used to trade. What happened? Look as you move across to the right. We pushed up. Now watch. There's the first backside test right there. Notice that backside test of this area right here. This was generated on news. And by the way, we were long in front of this, and I totally blew it. I scratched the trade, okay? We were long in front of this. News drives it. We come back for a backside test of this location, right? Perfect backside test. It trades sideways for 20 minutes, and then without almost any heat in this location, right? And then gives you a rotation from 28.83 all the way up to 28.89. Perfect trade, right? Even if you'd waited all day long, you just waited for that, perfect counter rotation into the Apple News, which we assumed we get squeezed up into Apple News. You look, we pushed. And then when we were here, this is important. When we got up here, I pointed out to the room that, hey, that 28, it was then 90.92, but this 28.89, see how we couldn't get above all afternoon? They attempted to push, right? They come off, and we rotate down right into, right, support again. And we come off that support, and then they drove. And where do they drive to? Right to that 93.95 at the end of the day. We didn't quite hit it, but pretty darn tootin' close, right? That was the upside target. Okay, so let me pause for a second because I've been pretty intense on this, right? It's really frustrating when you're good at charting and you're good at making your basic zones and you've come all the way through here and you go, okay, this was the trade plan from the beginning of the day, right? These were our key locations. You rejected out of almost every single key location, right? Gave you a great trade, right? Would have provided you with plenty of P&L, gave you a great long to the upside. Everything really worked pretty cleanly. Even if you look at this right here on the news, we came up, we tested value area low, we attempted above, traded back in, rolled all the way back down to support. On paper, at least, for the way I trade, this should have been, let's call it at least a 4-point day would be fair for me to say. Maybe if I traded it properly, it'd have been a 10 or 15-point day. But even if I misexecuted, it should have been a 4-point day, right? So with that being said, now I got to go into the nitty gritty. I got to look at where my decision making had come in from, right? So number one, I've been splitting my time between NQ and ES. One question mark in there is, do I need to drop NQ completely? Even though that could have accounted for almost 40 points, $800 a contract in profit almost for me today. It didn't because I let him come back against me. Am I missing some fine points on ES is the first question I have, and I don't have the answer to that, right? The next place I dig into is, well, how would have I actually executed it per my process? How should I have executed these trades? And I'm going to go, now we're going to break, this is the same chart on a 6-range bar with my algo. The star is my algo telling me certain signals are triggered. The orange is certain other algos telling me that there's a certain amount of volume in that bar, much higher than relative to the other bars. I'm going to go through and look how my process would have kicked in, right? So, because this is where I no longer trade purely off the zones. I'm specifically trading the algo setup and the delta setups that come through. So number one, we open the day right there, okay? The first thing that you'll notice is we come up. This is the same zone I was talking about. You'll see that we opened up down, backside tested the anomaly, right? That's where the volume point of control and the TPO point of control is right there. So this is important, right? So stop and think for a second. If this is the volume point of control and the TPO point of control from the prior day, odds are first time in, you're going to get a rejection. It's unlikely that it's simply going to run through there. And there's another thing to know about the TPO and the volume point of control in that area. That area tends to be noisy, right? You tend to trade above it, below it, but usually the first time into it, you have a scalp there. And that's exactly what happens. So what you have to decide if you were going to trade that is you simply put a line on here. Now, these are my own personal stats. My win rate in the first half hour is closer to 60%, okay? Versus normally I'm running 65, 70%, sometimes 80% in my win rate, right? So the first point behind that is, if you're going to trade, I point out where the trade locations are and where the setups are, right? And I may or may not be taking them, but you've got to decide with that win rate, two things. Can you get a risk reward that pays for the losses? Let's say it's a 50% win rate. You need at least better than a 1-to-1 RR to pay for your losses and your commissions, right? It's probably closer to 60%. Number two, can you identify when it's going to make a significant move one way or the other? So when you, and this is exactly how I would coach someone if I was going through and they were struggling. This is exactly the questions I'd be asking. What was your big picture coming in? What was your day's preparation? What's going on in your life that's bothering you? Let's get down to the nitty gritty now of the decision-making process. So in the first half hour, I did absolutely nothing, and it did exactly what I thought it would do, which was chop sideways, and we went nowhere. Why did I think that? Because when you open up, coming back over here, when you open up inside the prior day's range, you tend to get tight, choppy rotations, and the market tends to go nowhere. So the difficulty in that is if you establish a trade and you try to make it push in one direction or another, you tend to get run over or stopped frequently. Like it'll go 2 points, it'll come back the other way 3 points, it'll go back the other way the 2 points, and it can be frustrating. Easiest way to solve that is if you're trading inside a value inside the first hour, skip it. It's no big deal. I know that there's trades available there. It doesn't mean that it should be traded, right? Next, if you look, what are we monitoring through the first half hour? the biggest deltas, right? So notice the progression of deltas as we're going through it. This is how you read order flow, guys. Very simplistic way, but nonetheless, how you read order flow. We start off the day with the biggest delta is a 1308. We then move to a 1342. This is now the kingmaker. Notice as soon as we get above the kingmaker, they push, right? In that push, we come down and we print a 1572. This now becomes the most important. And I'm not going to give away all the secrets, but this close above wasn't quite right? And this close below. So what I would have done at this point, this no longer matters. This no longer matters, right? This is the one that matters, right? So now I have to hold in my head, I have two conflicting or two ideas that I have to hold. I know that this area in general, right? I'm going to highlight it. This area in general, this should provide resistance, but I know it can be choppy. So what I'm looking for is a way to get definitive as to which way the market will move above or below that area. Just like when we were over here and we were rolling down, I go, oh, biggest delta, close above, we should push. Didn't push for a lot, right? It's 2 or 3 points, but it pushed and it was pretty easy to read. Again, I have a specific entry method for this. Guys, you know what the half-half method is on this particular setup, and it worked perfectly. Notice that we kept for your VWAP traders. VWAP's been a horrible place to trade today. You've gotten bone crushed. If you're a VWAP trader and someone comes in and says, hey, look how much money I made on VWAP, call bullshit. Today, VWAP was a nightmare for establishing positions long and short. Okay, number 2. And by the way, one of my members asked on that roll down the afternoon, should we take VWAP on the backside? And I was like, no, do not take VWAP. It is not set up and it's not respecting it. Save that member a 2 or 3 point stop. Makes a difference, right? So now we're going through the process, right? We know that this is now our kingmaker and we're looking for a definitive close. The bar that gave me a definitive close underneath was this bar right here. This bar told me we were rolling lower. There's a problem there. I didn't short that bar, and I have the same method of the half would have had me in. So I would have entered half here, the other half up on the backside test with a stop above. That would have netted me out about, let's see, 85, 3/4, 87 1/4. That would have put me in at about 86.50, 86 3/4 on my net entry. And my stop would have been 89. It would have been about a 3 point stop in this particular case. Not the most attractive stop for a day where you expect balance. But the entry was correct, right? I didn't take it. So the first thing I have to do when I'm looking at that is I have to go back down and write in my journal. We were underneath volume point of control. My clear target below was this 83.75 to 82.75. And I had approximately anywhere from 2 to 4 points available to me there. And I didn't take the trade. So I talk to my members all the time about writing down the trades that you didn't take in your process, right? So there's no big secret about my process. It's taken me a long time to develop it, but you've got to look back at your day and not just determine which trades you made money on or lost money on, but you also have to go back and say, well, what were the trades I was supposed to take? And this was a trade I was supposed to take right here. I need to erase this real quick so I don't get confused with the lines. Okay. This was a trade I was supposed to take. I didn't even take it on half size. That gets a big F. Why? Number 1, I got my 2 points almost instantly. Number 2, it was eventually worth for my entry right here, even though I never backside tested. On my trailers, I had my 2 points. And then from 85 1/4, I could have reached all the way down to 79. And that's 5 or 6 points. That's a good day for most people, right? You get 5 or 6 points. That's $250 a contract, even on half size. I'll take it all day long, right? Now, here's where coming up, I've made my biggest mistake. I didn't take a long here, and there was no reason. Why? Number 1, okay, I get the biggest delta of the day. So now my kingmaker moves here, okay? What is this telling me? They had heavy sellers. If we get above this guy, I'm going to assume my sellers are trapped, right? We don't do it, okay? We do not get above those sellers. Notice we never triggered above. There's no trade, and there was no trade. That was a good decision. So you got to remember, you also have to go back to good decision, bad decision process in your entire process. So one big F right here, right, and an A+ here because there was nothing to do, and I didn't let myself get anxious and go, which is common. I missed my short, right? I missed my short, so I'm going to try it on the long side and end up getting stopped. So that was a save, right? Next, big delta divergence. It never triggers, but we did do a correct job here in listing that this was now the new kingmaker. It's now shifted. Notice sell pressure on these bars is getting heavier and heavier as we're coming down. What's going on? What does that tell you? People are starting to get scared, right? That's fear coming into the market. When you're getting bigger deltas as you're pushing lower into the lows, that shows fear. So the first thing I said here is we close above this bar, right? We close above this bar, and then the requirement there was a point of control above and the bar close above, right? That is long. Stop is, okay, stop is 28.8150 plus 2 ticks at a minimum. That's the normal stop, right? But then we get another divergence right here into the low. We get this negative 1528, and this bar almost closes at the high. I know it painted red, but look how it closed. It was really delta divergence. Delta divergence number 2. Now, we had a bit of an dilemma here. Which one do you take? And so I was still going with this one right over here, right, is the one that had to get above. So if you'll notice, we push above. This long is hypothetically triggered right here on this bar. That's a valid entry. It had a big enough delta. It was a valid long entry. I was waiting to get above here, and that triggered right here. So then what I said was, wait, where did I enter this trade? Because I forget where I entered. I need to go back and look at my execution, but I'm pretty sure if I cheat on this, what I said was I was entering, I think I entered half at 83.50, if I recall. 83.50 was my first half entry on this trade right here. When this bar closed, I think I got 83.50. It went back on almost immediately. I waited for it to get above. So this bar met my requirements, and it also triggered on my algo. The star above is a momentum indication, right? So it gave me a double confirmation that I should be long here, right? And then I go to the half-half process. I entered half. It almost went back immediately before I get the order in. So I think I'm in at 83.75. And then I'm laid up on the backside here at 83 or 82.50. I think I end up at 83.25, but I may be off on the numbers. I might have gotten a little bit lower, but it was there roughly, right? And then this starts to happen right here, right? So remember, my stop on this trade after I get above, my stop on this trade is right over. So once we trigger above this bar, my stop on the trade is right here at 81, right? Understand my risk here, even if my average is 83, is 2 points, right? It's pretty freaking small stop, right? And when you get into this location, okay, all I had to do is go, I'm willing to lose my 2 points, and that's a very good low. I know that we're getting above my biggest seller. What usually works out in that situation is I get a trap to the other end of the range when we're inside of balance, right? Comes over here, and this took a very long time. We really slowed down when we did this. If you look, I started to get itchy because in my back of my head, for whatever reason, I had short on the brain. And when this came back, I thought we were going to, when I entered this trade, I thought we were going to break. I came pretty close to getting stopped. We rolled up here, and I thought we would break right here on this bar to the upside. I did not get my scale. I did not get my scale in this area. And when it came back, I bailed on the trade. I stopped the trade break even right here. Okay. The pain about that is what happens next. Almost as soon as I closed that trade out, it was straight up. Obviously, the 2-point scale is possible right into the volume point of control, which probably would have been my next logical location. That would have ended up being a 5-point trade. And then it pushes all the way up to my target for the day, which was 28.95. That can make you feel incredibly stupid when you do something like that. So I want to go through this again because this was my biggest mistake of the day, right? This is my first ES trade. I had a picture-perfect textbook as I teach it to my coaching clients and how I teach it in the room entry. I got above my biggest negative delta. I had a momentum entry. It wiggled on me just a little bit. And I already let it, think about how stupid this decision was on my part. I already let it come back within 1 or 2 ticks of stopping me. And then I bailed on it break even. I already took all the pain. right? I experienced all the pain and discomfort of having a trade roll back on you. And then I was like, oh, thank God I'm getting out for it. Was a total rookie decision, and had a severe impact on my day, right? Because now you're looking at it and there's nothing worse than looking at this and then getting this be your next move where you had the low, right? So at that point, and when this happened, I got pretty far off a process. And I'll tell you why I got off a process. While we were over here, while this was my biggest delta at that point in the day, we had this 5,000 delta, which I totally missed, right? So at this point, I have to redraw my locations, right? So this is still my anomaly, but now I have a new kingmaker, and that's right here. So number one, I should have been keyed up for a backside test of this location for a long first time in. But I'm going to tell you right now, I missed that trade. Didn't even take it, right? Next, when we pushed up on top, right? So it was a news environment. I'll grant myself was a little bit higher, but I pushed right into my location. All I had to do was look back and go, okay, so this was a little bit trickier and a little bit higher difficulty, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of leeway. News came out relative to tariffs and the trade negotiations between China and the United States. So that's a news situation. I just missed essentially what was my entry, 83 to 93 roll up, right? And it's okay to be upset in that situation. It's not okay to trade poorly. So I'm not thinking short at this point. If you were, you're a better trader than I am. That looked awfully strong, and I'm not willing to short that. But I still screwed up my day, right? I'm going to show you how I still finish it off. Notice as we're pushing up, this is still my kingmaker. We don't get underneath, and I said it in the room. I said, if we don't get underneath this guy, this is your support. I said, now if we get underneath here, we have a chance to roll to the downside. But if we don't get underneath here, we're going to push up. So if you look, we're rolling. We start to roll down. We push to 95. And obviously whatever news they liked or didn't like, they roll right off. This is where one of the members in the room asks, should we take the VWAP trade? Should we take the VWAP trade? And I said, that's not on the menu, right? And that was a great call right there. Why? A, the market's tumbling over itself. B, up top, once we got up here, this became your biggest delta right here. So this was a hard setup to short, right? Especially right in front of VWAP. So I'm giving myself a break on this whole move right here. This one I wouldn't have caught. I just wouldn't have done anything. But I'm not going to go long once we're underneath this guy either, right? Why? Because once we get underneath that guy, this guy becomes the logical location. And look what the market does. Boom, right into him. Now, I want you to notice something. At this point right here, I am already thinking I want to short, right? Why am I thinking I want to short? And this is really important. This is where I screwed up my day. I went completely off of process, right? Because my process would have had me getting long right here and a stop 2 ticks behind. That trade right there, without much heat, actually no heat at all. It's just the 2 points, right? And it ends up rolling me from a 84.25 entry to 89, another 5 points. Again, not paid. Notice we print another big delta, but not bigger. This is still the kingmaker down here, right? Okay, so I missed that trade, and I already have short on the brain. And those in the room know I was starting to short NQ. I shorted NQ twice when I was up in this area. I got stopped one time. I did extremely well the second time and didn't take the profits, right? 20 points on NQ is $400 a contract, and you still feel stupid for letting it go. And the point of this exercise isn't to berate yourself. The point of the exercise is to go, how does your day look if you did it perfectly, right? So in this particular case, when we roll down, we come into the biggest delta. My risk here is 2.5 points, right? What am I targeting back up? Lo and behold, your overnight TPO and volume point of control. You could have come in. It took you a hold of approximately 9 minutes to get 4 points or $200 a contract. You had your two-point scale right there, and you could move your stop to break even. Easy peasy, you got paid. That's a beautiful setup. There's no excuses there. I should have had it, right? So moving forward, we're now waiting for Apple. We come back. Once again, we test the same big delta. If we don't get below, it's long. Sure enough, it's long again. And we roll up for a second time where they squeeze. Notice Apple's going to come on at 12, and we squeeze right into, once again, resistance, right? See how we're playing ping pong? Because we're in balance. We're inside prior day's value. supports hold, particularly big deltas hold. Okay. So then we come up across delta and I point out, hey, this bar over here, right? That bar that was on top that should have held. So remember, it's important that you recognize that it should have held. Why? Because see how the constant backside tests of that particular bar are rejecting, right? Same area. You have evidence from your TPO and you have evidence from your day time frame rolling over. There's the backside test. Notice we never close above, right? And then it rejects one more time. And where does it reject? Down into. I'm going to show you. Finally presses right in. And notice from this rotation down, from the high to the low, they slam into your 5K delta from the left, right? From your 5K delta from the left, you're in at the low, right? There's no trade here unless you're just going to lean against that, right? But now you have your biggest delta there. This is a perfect long entry, and it took place. I mean, perfect. It took place before the 2 p.m. hour. It was a clear signal that we were going to roll. You got the biggest delta into the low. So what was the formula for getting long here? Because this happened pretty quickly, and it was actually a painful stop. If you looked, it was 28.8575. This is the only problem with this bar. 85.75. Your other entry was 84.50. It would have given you an average of approximately 85. Your stop would have been the low of the day, which would have been 82.50. So with an average of 85 on full size, 2.5 point stop, what did you get in exchange for your risk? You didn't get your second. You note that you didn't get the second fill if you didn't go for the half and half, guys. You didn't get your fill. Bam. Right into and back to almost to 95. From that entry at 85, you pulled almost 10 points. 2 points for your scale. And that is how my day should have unfolded. Now, so there's a very simple question. What got in the way of me doing my job, right? And these are the things you want to list off. And this is what it won't tell me. So now I know how my day should have looked if I had just laid back and did it perfectly, right? So when you look at it from this perspective and you stay on point, it wasn't that difficult. We really kind of followed numbers by dots. So first of all, what made it difficult was the market got really choppy in the middle of the morning because it was on hold. Second thing that made it difficult was I didn't expect it to roll all the way down out of the gate in what was essentially an open drive lower, right? The other thing that made it difficult for me is I expected the market to drop, right? There's nothing wrong with expecting the market to drop. What was wrong was I didn't wait for the setup to come within the room. Like it was fine. I had a 20-point short on NQ. I had enough contracts on to pay my meals for a long, long freaking time, right? And I didn't wait for it, right? And then lastly, I just didn't I didn't connect what I expected with the day with what we got. And I allowed my trading to get frustrated and get away from what was otherwise a normal process. So the way I fix it tomorrow, number one, a couple of lists. I don't try to hit the home run. I don't try to grab the huge swing. I stay outside of the first half hour. Why? First half hour is harder, and I have a higher stop rate inside the first half hour. So solution, get the heck out of the first half hour, right? Next, when I get the closer above or below that biggest delta, right, it's very straightforward, okay? Take the half-half trade, one on top, one behind. It's a 2-point stop on 2 contracts, easy peasy. And take that trade and process. If you get 3 stops in a row, you're going to be down between 6 and 7 points on the day, right? That's $300 to $400 per contract traded, right? So make sure you have the numbers. And if you can't afford that, adjust, right? If you can only trade 1 contract, and I say this all the time, if you can only trade 1 contract, you probably have to get that backside test. And if you can't get it, you're going to have some trades that get missed. That's just how it goes. You really need 2 or 3 contracts to make the process work at its most efficient, right? And then lastly, if the market blasts away from you or the market takes too long, there's no timer on when the setup comes. Just let the market roll around to you, right? I don't want to do anything special tomorrow. I don't want to have any preconceived notions. I want to do what I just did for all of y'all. I want to look at where my levels are from the prior day's time frame. I want to look at how the buying and selling via order flow is unfolding through the course of the day, right? And I want to keep my focus steady on getting above or below my best seller, right? Am I going to get stopped sometimes? Yeah, but my win rate usually floats again between 68, 75%, and it provides me with a lot of P&L. Where those numbers fall off, and I'll tell you right now, are one contract trader guys. One contract trader guys have difficulty. There's no easy way around it except, right, except to just make sure that when you're doing the half-half method, you're basically getting the backside test. You have a 2-point stop, and 2-point stops pretty, I mean, 2.5-point stops are pretty cheap if you ask me on ES. So that's the method. So going forward for tomorrow, you don't want to beat yourself up. We've discovered what I did wrong and what I didn't run efficiently, and I let the market frustrate me. And then the other thing that I did was I had a preconceived notion that the market was going to go lower. I allowed that to chicken me out of my trades over here. And at the end of the day, when we set up multiple times for beautiful longs, I ignored those. So not smart, and I left pretty good P&L off the table, and corrections will be made for tomorrow. That's how you get back to being a good trader when you already are a good trader. Again, the problem isn't that I'm losing money here. The problem is that I'm letting really profitable trades come back on me by trying to catch a larger swing. And B, I'm going off process once I get agitated, because if I was on process, I've highlighted quite clearly where there was at least 2 or 3 actually highly profitable trades, and I didn't capture one of those 3 highly profitable trades. And so going back to like guys like Randy and Jimbo that are in the room, guys, right? You want to keep a separate journal. Trades I should have taken but didn't. You want to write down the reason you didn't take them, right? What was going through your head at the time, to help you figure out and go, oh, okay, now I understand why I didn't take that trade. I understand why my thinking process is interfering with my mechanical trading process. And I want to get back to mechanics, because on a day in, day out basis, it's highly profitable. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. If you have any questions, if you need a mentor or coach, or you just like to be in the room, a lot of good coaching goes on in the room, and you like to try it out, send me an email, tradertough@gmail.com, right? We usually do a coaching session once a day, once every other day. And if you like one-on-one coaching, contact me and we'll see if we're a good match. Don't keep losing money. If you don't have a detailed process that you can break down like I just did, it's almost impossible to find out what you're doing wrong, right? All you do is go, well, I lost money and I don't know why. I know why I didn't make money today, and I know why I gave back money today. I can pinpoint it in my decision-making process. When you don't have that decision-making process on your side, right? When you don't already have a set, this is how I do things day in, day out kind of deal, there's no way to track back. There's no way to track back what you are doing or how well or poorly you are doing it. So anyways, I'll see everyone in the morning. I'll do a market preview. Have a great night. Trade safe, trade well. Talk to you later, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button, please.